In northern Michigan, hundreds of people packed a township hall, spilled down the staircase, and crowded into the lobby, all to stop the data centers before they arrive. And that's just the opening shot. Tonight a developer is suing to kill a city's moratorium. America's biggest grid is running up a $16 billion tab, and 2/3 of the nation's planned AI build-out is rising on drought-stricken land. We begin in Garfield Township, Michigan, just outside Traverse City, where hundreds of residents packed the Planning Commission Wednesday night, filling the meeting room, spilling down the stairs, and crowding into the first-floor lobby. What they came for was a freeze. The commission voted to recommend a zoning amendment giving the township board the power to halt data center applications by simple resolution. An initial moratorium of up to 12 months, with a possible 6-month extension, for a maximum of 18. Water dominated the public comments. One resident reminded the room that the Great Lakes hold 20% of the world's surface freshwater. Another speaker, State House candidate Mitch Distan, pointed downstate to Saline Township, which voted a data center down 5-1. Was threatened with a lawsuit by Oracle, and was ultimately forced to accept the project. The amendment now heads to the Township Board for a second public hearing. That opposition is now making its way into courtrooms. But in Minnesota, it's the developer doing the suing. Eagan Capital, which owns a data center in the Twin Cities suburb of Eagan and wants to expand it, has asked a judge to void the city's 1-year moratorium on large-scale data centers, calling it unlawful and ill-advised. The complaint, filed June 15, argues the city is really trying to regulate energy usage, and that under Minnesota law, only the state's Public Utilities Commission has authority over electricity demand. If that argument works, it could hand developers across the country a template for attacking local moratoriums. Not by fighting the zoning itself, but by claiming towns have no right to regulate power at all. Eagan passed its pause earlier this year to study the industry's impacts. Now a court will decide whether the pause survives. In South Carolina, the same collision is playing out in reverse. There, it took a lawsuit to force the pause. Colton County has now enacted a 6-month moratorium on data center development, after the Southern Environmental Law Center sued the county over zoning changes it says don't conform with the county's own comprehensive plan. With the freeze in place, the law center has agreed to suspend its case for the duration. 6 months for the county to rewrite its rules and decide what it actually wants. The truce is fragile. If the county's new ordinances fall short, the litigation resumes right where it left off. It's part of a national pattern. By one industry count, communities have rejected or restricted more data center projects in the first 4 months of this year than in all of last year combined. And the reason these fights keep multiplying comes down to one thing: power. On the nation's largest grid, PJM, serving 65 million people across 13 states, the cost of keeping the system running has jumped nearly 70% this year, topping $16 billion, with roughly $3.8 billion of that tied directly to data center demand. During this month's heat wave, wholesale prices briefly rocketed past $2,000 a megawatt hour, and the grid braced for a record load of more than 166 gigawatts, breaking a mark that had stood since 2006. Federal emergency orders even authorized PJM to push data centers of 50 megawatts or more onto their own backup generators to keep the lights on. PJM expects peak demand to grow by 32 gigawatts by 2030. And all but 2 of those gigawatts are data centers. The pressure on the grid is only half the story. Water tells the other half. A new analysis by The Guardian finds that 2/3 of the 809 data centers planned across the United States are slated for land that has been in drought within the past year. 517 projects. According to federal drought monitoring data, a single large AI campus can consume as much as 5 million gallons of water a day. And more than 60% of the country is currently experiencing drought conditions. In Virginia, officials watching reservoirs drop through a dry summer are now asking publicly what the data center build-out means for drinking water. The industry answers that agriculture uses far more, but critics say cooling is only one leg of the demand, before you count the power plants and chip factories rising behind the same boom. State legislators are taking notice. And in New Jersey, the governor just put her signature where the anger is. Governor Mikey Sherrill signed a package of utility bills this week headlined by the Data Center Fair Share Act, which requires large data centers to pay their own way for energy instead of shifting costs onto families and small businesses. The package also repeals a bonus incentive that let utilities earn extra returns on infrastructure spending, and tightens state oversight of grid investments under the Advanced Grid Technologies Act. Her administration says its energy actions over the past 6 months will save New Jersey ratepayers more than $1 billion a year, citing an analysis by Synapse Energy Economics. New Jersey now joins Virginia, which began taxing data center electricity this month at more than a penny per kilowatt hour, in making the industry pay up. Yet despite that regulatory wave, construction is pressing forward, and at record scale. New census data shows data centers are now the single largest segment of U.S. commercial building construction, with project spending running at an annual rate of $51 billion. More than traditional office development. The newest shovel in the ground belongs to Microsoft, which just broke ground on a data center in LaPorte, Indiana. Alongside the groundbreaking, the company announced a partnership with Ivy Tech Community College to open the state's first Microsoft Data Center Academy, training local workers for the jobs the facility will bring. It's part of a wider Midwest push. Microsoft just brought its $3.3 billion Mount Pleasant campus in Wisconsin fully online, as hyperscalers bet that the heartland's land and power can carry the next phase of the AI boom. And the financial commitment behind that construction is staggering. AI cloud provider CoreWeave revealed it has signed more than $40 billion in new customer commitments, pushing its contracted revenue backlog to nearly $100 billion. The company also confirmed that partner Galaxy Digital has completed delivery of 200 megawatts of power at the Helios campus in West Texas under a 15-year lease, with commitments covering 526 megawatts across 3 phases. It's a bet that long-term contracts can outrun thin margins and a heavy debt load. As CoreWeave races hyperscalers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta for AI workloads, communities may be packing town halls from Michigan to South Carolina, but with nearly $100 billion in demand already under contract, the build-out isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, subscribe, leave a like, and drop a comment. It helps us cover more of these stories.